Hi there, welcome to the 8th of our masterclasses for learning the ins and outs of designing content for Sinespace. So today we're going to be discussing clothing, particularly all the various ways we can actually get clothing on and how to make your clothing look good. So today's topic I'm going to do things a little bit differently than I have in previous ones, and I'm actually going to focus a bit on the modeling side, a bit on the texturing side, and then finally how to bring it back into Unity. So we've only got an hour, so unfortunately this is going to have to be a little bit slapdash and rushed, because obviously modelling things well takes a bit more time than that we've got, because I'm hoping to model two things today. But hopefully it'll give you the overview of the process, how you can get things in, and how we can make things look good. So we'll also try and cover things like cloth physics, as well as painting and texturing in Substance Painter versus doing it in Photoshop. So today we're going to use Blender. Blender's obviously free, and I'm going to use this for modeling our clothing. Now, what I've done here, I'll just and the other tool we're going to be playing with is going to be Substance Painter. Now, Substance Painter is a paid application. It's a 3D texturing application. You don't have to use Substance Painter. There are plenty of others. The Quicksil suite works pretty well for Pvr Texturing as well, but as my tool of choice, I'm going to be playing with Substance. So I'm just going to start out in Blender. Now we've decided that today we're going to make two things. I'm going to try and make a leather wristband just to show off the attachment system, and then I'm going to follow that up and actually make a properly fully skinned and rigged and textured t-shirt. Again, neither two are particularly complicated items, but hopefully that they give us sort of the overview of how we can get this process started. Now, what I've done here is I've actually imported two characters into this scene. The first on here on the left, this is our original 2015 male skeleton. Now, if you look at it, that's about the poly count. It's, give or take, it's somewhere around 6,000 or 7,000 polygons attached to this one. This one is the one that you guys have probably been working with already. That's fairly basic. The guy I've got next to him is our new updated model. Now, the new updated model, if you look at him, is actually proportionately fairly identical. His, generally speaking, clothes designed for one will fit the other, which is part of our design goals. But what you will notice is, first, the poly count is considerably higher. So we can show you here. It is in fact over 4 times higher. We have, this one contains 39,000 triangles. This one contains, give or take, 6,000 something. So 7,800 on that one, and then this one is 39,000 or 32,000. Nonetheless, it is substantially higher. We have more details attached on this model, and I will just give the quick overview. The ears, for example, have been fully modelled, whereas on the other model, as you can see, the ears have been relying heavily on the normal map for the interiors. Likewise, lots of other small features, the nose, other parts have been smoothed out and more detail added. We've added abdominal muscles to the male skeleton. We've made similar changes to the female one. The male now has fingernails, and there is a few other small little bits and pieces that are improvements on this updated model. We're still refining this one a little bit, so don't expect it to come out in the next release, but we're expecting to finalise the actual meshes completely within the next week or two. So we'll be able to hand these guys out for you guys to begin building clothing with. I've just got him in here as a reference, we can have a look, but this is the new and updated models, which will be coming out shortly. The other benefit of the higher poly count is it actually works a little bit better with clothing resizing and things, because we've got a much more high resolution mesh to base that information on, but otherwise, yes, very similar to what we had before, just higher poly count and it looks a bit better. For reference, WebGL and low-end clients will still get the old guy. He will be our old base model. He'll also be our LOD model for further away avatars, whereas this one is actually the one that's visible at on high-end computers and up close. So don't count on this guy going around completely. They are still going to be the same. We're going to keep the same morph targets and blend shapes and things on both sets of models simultaneously. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to go with the attachment first, just because it's easier. So building attachments. Now, there's two types of clothing, two primary types of clothing in Sinespace. The first type is skinned clothing. That is clothing that has been rigged and weighted to the base mesh and will move with the mesh. The other type of clothing is attachments, which are attached to a bone, and they don't move with the mesh, but they will move with the bone. Now, attachments are considerably faster to work with, and you've got more power artistically if you want to attach effects. Things like particle effects and so forth will work better with the attachments than they will with skinned outfits. Now, skinned outfits obviously are more essential for things that are actually going to be worn, like clothing, so t-shirts, pants, that kind of thing, because they will obviously not subtly break when the avatar actually moves. So to keep things moving and going smoothly, that's what you'll need to do. Now, attachments, as I said, are just rigged to a bone, so if we look at the skeleton on this one, I don't know, actually, I think I've got this one on the skeleton loaded. The FBX files, incidentally, sorry, the FBX files for these characters can be found inside the editor pack. If you just go in here and search for 2015, you will find both our male and female skeletons. These are the same ones that are used in the client itself. They are identical. That means that the rigging, the weighting, all that stuff is the same one we use officially. So there's no difference between this and what's actually embedded in the viewer. There is a slight difference in the actual rendering if we've got tessellation enabled, which means you need to be a little bit careful when you're doing your previewing, but we can do that in the editor when we come back into here later. The new models will come into the same editor pack. They will get an updated name. It'll be 2017 male and 2017 female, but otherwise it'll be in the same location and with the editor packs. If you do need a copy of them now, just to get some basic previewing, you can ask us. We do have them. We do have copies floating around. Just be aware that they may be modified further before we're actually finalised and settled on these models. Okay, so to begin, we're going to make an attachment, and to do this, I'm going to just go for some sort of leather accessory. Now, for attachments, accessories are generally the way to go. For accessories, attachments is often the way to go, and the reason for that is just they're very lightweight. They don't require much work. They don't require any rigging or skinning. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just actually going to grab an edge here, and I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to separate it. All right, and hopefully be able to find it. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to expand this along the normals. So I do have an open question which I've put into the group chat for a fake brand name to actually brand this at. But we'll come back to that in a minute when we actually get to the stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smooth this guy out a little bit. Whoops. I'm just going to subdivide this a little bit, just so we get a nice smooth brand. Now, when you're worried about poly count, you probably do need to care a little bit about how things actually finally come out, because unlike some other virtual worlds, we do apply some standards to avatar clothing, and that is if you go above certain poly count, weight, complexity limits, which I'll come to as well, you will cause lag for everyone who enters the environment and actually has your avatar in it. So by enforcing these standards, we ensure that everyone gets a good, smooth experience, and that's something that I think is quite important to actually when we've got large environments with lots of avatars. Now, we have a level of detail system coming as well. I'll be talking about that in my office hours later today if you want to show up for that. But for now, I'm just going to keep modeling this this outfit. So what I've done is I've foolishly added this as a modifier. Yes, I have. So I'm just going to go back into here, subdivide. I'm just going to make a couple of cuts and set the smoothness up to 1. That did not quite go as I was planned. Maybe we'll do this as a modifier instead. Okay, let's pull that reference off because we don't need that. Okay, so I'll just apply that. Why do we have a shape key attached to this? Hold on 1 second. Pull you off. Not sure why that's misbehaving so much. So I'm into trouble already. My Blender knowledge is a little bit inexperienced. It's been a while since I've actually done any proper clothing modeling. So I'll just grab this and we'll subdivide in a second along the loop. So first things first, I'm just going to extrude this. I'll make the normals consistent. Right, now we'll subdivide. Just before I begin to actually improve this. It's still not coming out quite how I want. So just subdiv this one. No, there shouldn't be any shape keys on this one. Oh, because it was extracted from the other one. How are we going to get rid of this? If anyone's got a quick answer on Blender and group chat on removing shape keys quickly. Clear shape keys, there we go. Right. Joy. I'm going to have to do this the complicated way. Sorry guys, a little bit of experience with this one. I'll have to come back, I'll just make a new one if I have to. Okay, so I'll just grab a circle. I could do this way, but I won't. I'll do it the cylinder way, this will be easier. And I'll just set the vertex count a little bit lower. I'm just going to try and keep the origin roughly centered with the model as well. This has become important when we actually bring it back in as an attachment. Unlike the skin meshes, the origins of attachments do matter. In Blender that's represented as a little circle in here, but just pull these faces off. Just try and get it close to the bone as I can, so we'll just mount this one off the wrist bone, which should be fairly close to there, just from memory. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set this one to shrink wrap to the base skeleton we've got here, so I'll just go shrink wrap, pick male body, and there we go. And I'll just offset this a little bit. And I'll add a new. This might have gotten a little bit wonky, but we'll add a subdiv above it as well, just to keep things simple, more smooth. Frankly, that looks better. Let's do a little bit of cleanup here as well. Just gonna move a few things around. Okay, nothing too complicated with this one. If we want to model this one properly, we would, but today it's going to be a fairly basic effect. Okay. Now, something to note is as we make these is that attachments are not affected by the clothing resizing system. So when you've got items that are using our built-in shape resizers, the attachments are not affected by that. So really, this even could be something that would be better served as a skinned mesh, even though it's a small item, just because it would take advantage of those benefits. We have an attachment repositioning system on its way. You can thank Alan for that. While we were doing some very long, complicated builds on Friday last week, he whipped up an attachment repositioning system that will be coming to the outfit window at some point in the future when he can get a chance to finish it off. But that is coming through, so I'm just going to quickly extrude this guy and then, oops, and I'll just move along normals. Alright, and that's our basic bracelet, which hopefully is all aligned as we want. I'll just shade this so smooth. And I might just make a small inset in this one, just to keep the lighting looking somewhat nice. Okay, basic leather bracelet, and finally I'm just going to UV this one quickly. Hopefully I haven't wasted too much time on building this. going to grab these two outer edges and I'm just going to mark those as seams. Just so we get a nice clean unwrap. Oops. Finally, somewhere where it's not entirely visible, we're going to mark another edge seam. So let's mark a seam. If you're familiar with 3D modeling, this should make sense. This is just how the UV map's going to get unwrapped. I'm just going to set this clip to something close so I can actually see what I'm doing. Great. Okay. Alright, now if we were going to rely on manually painting this in Photoshop, we would actually probably care about how we do our unwrapping. I actually don't so much, so we just want to make sure that we're not too wasteful, so I may even just add another seam on the other side just so we can maximize our UV area. So I'll just grab one from, I guess around there, it's about the same as it was on the other side. Just unwrap. Okay. So, if you wanted to make this more easily editable in Photoshop, just a quick way is just to pin some of these edge seams along the edge. So what we can do is just go SX0, whoops, SY0, just to flatten that out. I'll just pin it. I'll do the same for this one. And I'll do the same for these guys. In fact, I'll just rotate these guys so they're all consistent. I'll do the same thing here. And okay, and now when we unwrap this again, we should get something that's fairly close. There's some slight warping because of how we built this thing on the edges, so I'll just probably do the same for the top as well. Now, may or may not be a good idea to actually do this. Whoops. Why has my scale broken? Done something stupid, I'm sure. Okay, so I'll just pack these islands. I have done something. What have I done? Grab some sort of warp modifier by mistake. My Blender knowledge is about rudimentary at best, so I apologise for any me having to learn things in the process. I'll just grab these, I'll pack them, and then we will go to what have I done? Okay. There's always something new. If anyone knows the answer to that one either. Okay. I'll just move. What have I done? What have I done? I apologise, this is the second masterclass I've obviously should have. Okay. Okay. Don't know why that was happening, but we're back to normal now. Okay, so we'll go SY0, great, pin, SY0, pin, SY0, pin, and finally SY0 pin. And that's just going to flatten these edges out, and this would make it more easily approachable for someone who's actually hand texturing this. Oh, sorry, pin. I'll just set these guys up. That means that if you're painting in Photoshop, you've got a nice consistent layer to work with. Now, I'm just going to quickly grab the rest of these. Now, these side bits are not so visible as they are on the surface, so I'm going to give a little bit less UV area to these guys, partly because they're a little bit unwieldy to pack, but also because they aren't going to be quite as visible as the other components. These bits are going to be more visible to the end user who's actually bought this item if you were selling it than it would be otherwise. Just move some of these a little bit in with each other. Blender's auto pack is not as good as some of the other tools that are available. If you're using something like some of the various unwrap tools. I think it's X Unwrap is one of them. Also the ones in Max and Maya are both a bit better than Blender's. I'm just going to try and keep these guys consistent as well, just so that... okay. Maybe not the best UV unwrapping job, but I don't want to spend more than a couple of minutes on this. In fact, I can rotate that 90. I can probably get a little bit more UV space on these. Okay, that leaves me a little bit more space for these guys. It's always a little bit of fine art working exactly how you can pack all these components together. Now for texture resolution, which we're about to come on to, because I'll just quickly paint these in. For texture resolution when you're painting, 2048 is fine. You can always reduce texture size. It's much harder to bring it back up afterwards, so if you've made it too small, you could have painted yourself into a corner, quite literally, whereas if you're working at a high resolution to begin with, you're probably safe for future proofing. Okay, we have our attachment. This is the basic thing, but here we go. So we'll just export this. Now when you're exporting this from Blender, there's a couple of settings you want to pay attention to. So I'm just going to grab my folder that I was playing with before, and I'm just making a new folder in here. This will be our Masterclass clothing. Okay. Now on the operator, in the export settings for FBX here, key things. We want to export probably the selected only, which is what we've done. We really only we want to export with scale 1. Forward should be Z forward, Y should be Y up, and you need to click apply transform. And when we bring that into our scene in Unity, hopefully this will be the right way. We might need to actually flip the forward axis, but we'll just start here. So it's going to be bracelet, and we'll export that FBX. Go bracelet. We'll just need to set the scale factor to 0.01. That will depend on which 3D modeling tool, what the scale factor is. For Blender's FBX export, it's 0.01. That's because it uses centimeters instead of meters. Now, we should, if we set the scale correctly, never mind, that was not correct. Okay, so now we've got our bracelet here. I might need to play around with some of these settings a little bit. So now we've actually got this in world, and this is untextured, but we will texture it in a moment. First things we want to do is just fit it to the avatar. Now when you're using attachments, you've got a fairly wide range in terms of how you can actually do this fitting process. So I'm just going to grab this guy and move him until he's roughly in the same spot we had before. And we'll just look at the bones to find the nearest bone that's available as well. This is probably a little bit big, but I'll allow some stretch room to allow for the fact that the avatar's appearance might be slightly different. They might have a thicker wrist. They might have some morphs and things applied. So we'll just go with that. That will do for now. So this is our basic armband. Now to set this up as an attachment, we'll go to skinning in a second, but I just want to get on with things first. All you have to do is you have to attach a clothing item settings. We need to tick which slots. Now this one, I don't want... The slot system is built so that if you've got two items using the same slot on the same layer, this is a new feature, they will block each other. So if you're wearing two skin-tight t-shirts, then when you try and put on the second one, the first one will get taken off. This is a user experience thing, especially for new users, just so they don't need to worry about unequipping old clothing, because it'll all just swap itself out magically, but that's powered by you tagging the appropriate slots. So for this one, I'm not going to tag any slots. I mean, I could tag something like the right hand. I think that's right. No, left hand. Think from the perspective of the player. So this is the left hand we need to tag. We will tag that. Now when we start putting this stuff on, we'll actually see that there'll be a preview thing attached to it. The other thing we need to do is just set the skeleton. This is what it's been actually designed for. So we'll set it to base male, and when you do that, you'll see the base male appear there. Now until we actually tag this one up correctly, it'll be a little bit offset, but we'll move along. Okay, so I'm going to set this one to attachment. Now to set the attachment, we just need to grab the base skeleton we're using here, and we go digging through its bones, and until we find the bone that we actually want this to be attached to. So this will be up the spine, chest, left shoulder, left arm, left forearm, left hand. I reckon that's probably the closest bone we've got. Yes, so we'll attach this to the left hand. So to do that, we just grab here, just drag left hand into the attachment slot over here, and that's pretty much all we need to do. We just need to click the prepare button, and when we do that, it's now attached to the thing. You can see down here the attachment information, it's now attached to left hand after you click prepare, and that will just tell you that it's correctly set up. Now, we're just going to go on to, I'm going to try and whip up my t-shirt. I will come back to texturing, but if I run out of time, I want to make sure that I at least cover off skin clothing first. So we're just going to build a quick and dirty t-shirt, and to do that, I'm going to show you a really hacky way of doing it, which will hopefully work out okay. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just going to want to get rid of all these shape keys. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab all of these. This is how I do it. Just going to grab, whoops. This is all the various shape keys that exist for character resizing. I'm just going to clear them off here because Blender wasn't happy with me doing a skin wrap on that before with the previous item. As you can tell, there is quite a lot of them. There's about 188 or so shape keys in total. Which will take me a second to... There we go. Alright. So. And I need to get you out of the way because you have somehow gotten in here. Okay. So, for this t-shirt, I'm going to start with the older skeleton. We could start with the new one if we wanted to be more precise with the new one, but we want to actually upload this today if we can, because I'll try and wear it in my office hours. So first things first, I'm going to actually subdivide this, so I've got a cleaner set of UVs to copy from. The way I'm going to build this shirt is basically just grabbing a selection of vertices, duplicating and extracting them, and then using that as the basis of my shirt. So it's going to be very skin tight. There are better and other ways of modeling a t-shirt, but this is a very fast way of doing it. So I'm just going to grab him, I'm going to subdivide, and that's just going to give me a more precise set of vertices to pull from, and I'm just going to set the smoothness down to 0 so it does no blending at all. This is going to match the one underneath precisely. Now you might ask why we want to do that, and the reason is because we've got an auto rigger, and when you use the auto rigger for skin tight clothing, the closer it does match the underlying skeleton on the edges is where it matters. So if just where it sort of hits the skin, it's best to try and use an edge loop that's nearby. Now this edge loop's unfortunately a little bit wonky. That was the one I was planning on using. That one will do, I think. Just going to make sure. No. Okay, I'm going to have to grab one of these by hand. A little bit annoying, but so grab. Yes, the geometry on this one's a little bit busted. Thankfully, we've fixed up a bit of that on the newer model. I'm trying to grab that one. Okay. So I'll just grab. So first things first, I'm just going to try and select a chunk of this model, and we're going to try and match it evenly. And I'm going to also do it in faces mode. So I'm just going to try and grab a bit of the model, and then I'll clean it up in a second. If you are a talented 3D modeler, you will notice that I'm not using Symmetry Mode, and that's because I don't actually have this set up properly for that, but if you know what you're doing, then you should be able to do that, and it'll save you a bit of time on actually building this clothing item. I'm just going to grab these guys. 3D modeling is a bit of a time-consuming process, especially if you're not a little bit rusty as I am. I actually used to be very good at 3D modeling. I've lost all these skills by just simply not using them for a while. Okay, so hopefully we can grab a nice set of edge loops and things that sort of just align nicely with what we're trying to do. So I'll unselect some stuff in a second. Just don't want to get the basics right. So we'll grab from here to there. Okay. And I think that's where we'll cut the shirt off. Maybe it might be a little tight. And we will probably end up with a couple of bits of funkiness around the place, so we'll just try and tighten those back. Oops. you might care that if it's done properly, to actually make sure this stuff is all neatly aligned correctly. I, on the other hand, am doing a very slapdash effort, so I'm just sort of eyeballing this a little bit on how the individual vertices layouts is going to look. So I think that's you. Correct. Just trying to make this symmetrical if I can. Okay, I think we've got the arms. I'll just make sure we've actually got a solid surface, and then I'll worry about the bottom pit. Okay, fantastic. So, you may want to do a better job of this when you actually build one yourself, but for 5 minutes work, this will be a very fast t-shirt that hopefully is something that we can use if it's not a terrible job I do. This is also why when you watch people model on YouTube, that they speed their process, speed their filming up, so they run at twice back speed because some of this stuff can be a little bit tedious. Okay, so. Okay, I think we've got. I'm just going to go from here all the way around. I'm not quite sure how this is going to align versus various bits of clothing. It might be a very short cropped t-shirt, but we'll see how it goes. We'll actually get it up into the environment. Alright. There we go. We have a basic t-shirt. So I just duplicated that. And I'm going to separate it. And hopefully we've got our basic t-shirt matched properly. So I'm just going to change the material on this guy. I'm going to switch off the matte cap rendering mode and right, now what we can do is just clean up a few of these rough edges. So let's grab these guys. Hopefully it won't take too long. As I said, this is not the world's greatest t-shirt design, but it will do. We'll smooth this and shrink wrap it, and hopefully it'll give us what we want. Okay, right, and finally for you. Oops. We're just filling this with triangles. I'm just using the F key to do this, just to plug it off so we don't get any sort of hard edges on this. Not that we're particularly worried about the height of appearance here, but nonetheless it would be good if we could get something that actually looked somewhat okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another shrink wrap, and this is going to make sure that we can push some of these vertices out. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a subdivision just above it. Alright, shrink wrap, then we're going to target the male body, and we're just going to keep it above surface and offset it a little bit. Alright, here is our very basic smooth. Alright. Now you'll notice the chest is poking through here a little bit. That's okay, because cloth and skin deletion will actually take care of a bit of that. Really, the areas we need to worry about are going to be these, the edges and how they look. But first things first, we'll get this guy modelled. So this is so far 10 minutes work. A little bit more than I'd hoped for the quick job, but hopefully we can speed back up in a few of the other things. So what we're going to do is we're also going to apply some little bit of cloth physics as well, just to show that feature off. So what I'll do is I'll probably just add a couple of tangles and things off the side that we can test that with. I might flare some of the edges. To do, I'll just apply all these first. Right. Okay. Sorry. My extrude tool has decided to play silly with me. It's one thing after the other today. Okay. No. Fine, we will leave you alone today. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We do have a little bit of an unusual triangle here though. Where have you gone? You might have done that by mistake in my messing around a second ago. It's unusual. But we'll just bring you back. It's a question of what you're linked to. Must have accidentally joined two vertices together at some point. Yes, I must have. Question is where you have come from. I think I can safely delete this. Okay, alright. This will do as our basic t-shirt because I don't want to spend too much longer on it. I'll just add a couple of things for cloth physics at the bottom, so I'll flare this one and go out a little bit, so I'll just go A. One sec. I think I've got a key jam down, that's why it's misbehaving for me. That would explain that. Let's pull this one down. Sort of explains several issues actually that I've just been running into. Lesson learned, make sure that your shift key is not jammed down. I'm just wrapping this one out a little bit just so I can flare it and have this move around independently of the avatar, because it'll give us a good test case for how to use cloth physics, especially in a more complicated area, which this will be. This particular pelvis area is an area that needs a bit of attention when you're actually playing with cloth physics. So I'll just keep extruding this a couple more times. One note with cloth physics, the more vertices you have active in the cloth simulation, the laggier it will be. Cloth physics is a quite CPU dependent thing. We disable it in WebGL. We will probably disable it on various mobile platforms as well. So just be aware that the more vertices you have animated, the laggier it will be, and the performance scores will actually tell you which will actually indicate what the performance will be like. In a little bit. Okay, maybe a little bit further down, just for the sake of. One more. Okay, this way we can actually see some of this stuff actually move around, which we're not going to have such a good time of if we don't actually have a few hang off the edges. Okay, alright, that's our basic t-shirt. I've lowered the poly count a little bit down towards the bottom, and that's just to make sure that the cloth physics isn't too laggy, whereas the density up here is a bit higher than the density down here, and that just means that we're going to have a little bit less to worry about in terms of how things look. Okay, I'm just going to mark some seams. Whoops. Grab one down here. And we'll need something that runs along the back. I think that's centered. Normally I would try and run one along here, but some of the edge loops here are a little bit hairy, and I don't want to try and work out. Oh, there we go. What do you know? There is one. Huh. Go figure. This is normally how you'd unwrap a t-shirt. So we've been gifted a little bit. Let's see, where are you ending up? There we go. So just pull you off, and you off, you off, and you off. Whoops. So there's a little bit of observation required to actually work out which one I've picked. Okay, so these are the ones that I've actually picked. I'll just mark a seam there. And now, with a bit of luck, oops. A bit of luck, we'll actually be able to see this unwrap. And it'll unwrap hopefully okay. Yeah, not great, but this will do. This is definitely not the greatest of UV mappings, but hey, we'll take what we can get. Not sure why I'm not able to move this. I think my keys jammed down again. Fine, we are using this UV mapping look. I'll just try and pack these to... Oh. I think now I've got it back. Blender. It seems to be operating just very, very slowly for some reason. It's probably because I'm doing a stream recording at the same time, actually thinking about it. I'll put it a little more on the front than the back here. You probably want to keep this even though. I'm just doing it because I want to save some time because we've only got a couple of minutes left and I want to get through as much of this as I can without having to cut anything off my schedule. Okay, so we've got these modelled. Now, again, we're just going to export this, bring it in to Unity, and to do that, we're just going to bring this out as same settings before. This is going to be our type t-shirt. Go back into Unity. In this folder, we should have one that will line up nicely with our avatar. There we go. Alright, now, first things we've got is there's a couple of things poking through. That should be okay. I think that the positioning is alright here. Those bits will get deleted out of skin deletion. It's a little bit closer to, say, on this section over here. The closer it is from an edge, the worse skin deletion is going to perform. So ideally you want to keep the bits that are poking out as far away from an edge as possible. We can hint this using a deletion zone, but first thing first, we're just going to rig this automatically. To do that, we just add a clothing item settings. Again, set the right rig, which you'll see is now lining up because we've got this at 0, 0, 0. Now the rotation is wrong, and that we're going to have to fix. So I did actually have that the wrong way around, so just go export, FBX, and we'll just set the forward to -Z. That's the one that Unity prefers, so just export that, and bam, there we go. We've got that in place, and I think otherwise this is okay, other than the scale. Now, I mentioned the scale was wrong before, so 0.01. It's going to get massive in the scene in a second. So we'll just grab the tight t-shirt, and we'll set the scale down to... There we go. Alright, now basic t-shirt ready to rig. Now, because rigging is a pain in the butt, we have an automated weighting system that will take care of 90% of the work for you. To use it, you just need to have the clothing item settings on it. You need to have selected the right skeleton, and this is important. Make sure to select the right skeleton first. Click Convert to Skinned. It'll ask you to make sure that it's all aligned. Just proceed. Give it a second. The more polygons in your model, the longer this step will take, but it shouldn't take more than about 30 seconds. There we go. Alright, so now this is fully rigged and weighted. When we upload it, it'll dance around with the avatar in world. We also have a few other bits and pieces that we can play with here. So I mentioned we had deletion zones. We might go ahead and do those, but the first thing first is I just want to cover off texturing because we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to make sure that we can cover both patterns and the basics of Pvr texturing. So Pvr texturing, which we'd covered in our first lighting course, is really sort of defining how materials react, not just what they look like. So that means that we've got metallic bits, we've got other bits, and to do that I'm just going to grab this guy, this is my tight t-shirt. Let's grab it in this folder here. I'm going to grab Substance Painter, which has hopefully been open the whole time. Yes, whoops, I'm going to make a new project. Going to grab the mesh, which is our tight t-shirt. Grab this, I'm going to set everything else as normal. And we have our model in Substance Painter. Now, Substance Painter basically was going to let us model this in a few different ways. The first thing is first I'm just going to bake the additional maps. It's going to bake ambient occlusion, normal maps, that kind of stuff. It's only going to be able to guess on the normal maps just because it doesn't have a high resolution mesh to look at, but it'll at least give us something very, very rough and basic, but it'll give us ambient occlusion, a few other bits and pieces we want. So the first thing we notice is it's a bit shiny, and that's because the default material is. Now we could either play with this directly adding a fill layer in Substance Painter and just setting the roughness, which is going to be how shiny it is up to maximum. It's the inverse of smoothness inside Unity, so 0 roughness is equivalent to 100 smoothness. Same rules apply, and as you can see it gets shiny when we add those smoothness, but I'm just going to go for the roughness. Roughness to here, and we've now got it fairly dull, but I'm just going to grab a smart preset. Now to do that, just add a smart material here. We'll grab a fabric of some sort. I've actually been fond of some of these camo ones when you strip the camo painting off them, but we'll grab one of those. Just grab a used fabric, give it a second, and it will automatically paint the material according to how things should be. Now I'm just going to remove him, which will be our actual fabric pattern. I'm going to add a new fill layer. Our fill layer is going to be fairly rough. I'm just going to add in fact I may even keep some of this fabric weathering, just actually override the colour. It's really the colour that we care about, because the rest of this material is actually pretty good up close. Okay, I'm going to finally just pull the folds bit down a bit, and to do that we have that folder, the edge folds. I'll just blow that a little bit more, just because we do want to keep these, but they're a bit strong by default. That still is quite strong. Okay, basic, very basic pattern. We'll make this shirt that colour. Again, this is not the world's greatest modelled thing, and we'll just pull these used edges off a bit as well. It's a bit strong, just because it's picked up on some of our roughness in how we modelled that little skirt bit on the bottom. I'll grab, this is probably a bit bright, so here we go. This is not going to be usable for anything else. And finally, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to play with where we get substance in its real sort of heart, and that is going to be adding metallic layers and things on top of it. So what I can do here is I can just I'll grab a smart layer and I'll set this to aluminium, so it'll be that nice shiny effect. I'm going to add a mask to it, or a black mask, and now I can paint on here and have some shiny metallic bits on the top. And I think that's probably going to do, but very nice. We'll add a little bit of decoration to this. Now, I did ask for a brand name before, because we'll do something fancy. In fact, I'll leave that there, and I'll add another smart layer with this rougher colour, and I'll add a mask. And what we can do to the mask, we can also add generators and layers and things in here, which actually can be quite useful. I'll add a fill layer here. I'll set that from a uniform colour to one of their text layers. I could even set something like herringbone if we want. We can actually see that we can begin to mask the layer, so we've got both the fabric and this more sort of dull whatever it is, but I'm actually just going to use one of their text font layers. Let's go font, grab this one, and what was our brand name? Our brand name was Sign Master Creations. There we go. This is not a masterwork, so I will scale this a bunch of times. There we go. We'll rotate that a little bit. Drop it down to there, and I'm going to pull the fabric base. It's got a height map on it. I'm just going to pull that down, because otherwise you can see that it's actually going to bump the underlying thing, but there we go. This is our very basic t-shirt. That's not quite as impressive as I was hoping, but we'll persevere. Maybe I'll change the colour a little bit. We'll add some edges to it, some stitching. This will be a super quick job. In fact, I won't add this. Yeah, well, I will do that very quickly. Just enough time. And we'll come into cloth in a second, so I'll just paint a quick stitching onto it with the brushes. Okay, that's what I usually use. And you use the shift key if you want to actually paint a. Oops. So it's where you hold the shift down and then release. Quick job, and we'll just grab that. There is in fact a. Oops. There is actually already stitching there where we did the UV seam, so. Oops. Okay. Nothing particularly fantastic here, but just the very basics, so we can get actually this this thing uploaded. Right. And finally, I might add just one more thing. Add a fill layer. You can get trapped in here for hours doing this stuff, but I'll just add a fill layer. And the reason I'm using a fill layer here is just because it's it is easier to recolor things after if you painted them as a fill layer and using a mask instead of actually painting directly on the surface. It can save a bit of time. So. I'm going to try and do the edging, but on the clock now. Oops. Now, if you're a professional artist, you will do this in half the time I will, with twice the skill, but this is one of those things that programmer art is never good. So I like to think that I can do at least a little bit better than the average coder, but we each have our skills, and mine is not in clothing design. Okay, there we go. And I'll set that to a little bit shinier. So I'll make this smoother. A bit metallic. We won't override those settings, and I might just bump this up a little bit, just so we got a nice bump there. Okay. Bring this into Unity, just export the textures. I use a slightly different dilation than the default. The default infinite dilation does not compress well because there can be empty areas on the texture. For instance, over here, if you use infinite dilation, you're going to make that compression a little bit less efficient, so you'll add a little bit to your file size. So I usually use dilation plus transparent and set the dilation to 16 pixels. That's far enough, it's well and truly far enough. And we will just export this into this directory. So we're grabbing here. Folder and grab these ones. Here we are. I believe this is it. Okay. I may have forgotten to set this up for Unity, but hopefully I got these things right. Yep. Okay. So we'll just grab the metallic. AO. Occlusion, base color, height. Normal map. I'll set that as normal. And we have we've got roughness set up wrong, so I actually need to export these in this particular mode. Configuration, we just will set this down to Unity. So we'll set this to Unity 5, standard metallic. I'll just export into this directory directly. So that's just something to watch out for. Usually it defaults to Unity, it defaults to whatever you used last, but it will configure all the channels and the maps correctly. Okay, here we go. So we've got albedo transparency, metallic, smoothness, there we go, and the normal map. There we go. Okay, so we've got our basic, very basic model here, and I think I've got this correctly. Have I? No, I dragged the wrong one in there. There we go. Now we got this correct. So this is, roughly speaking, kind of matching what we've got there. And the reason that's not completely matching is because of the lighting configuration. So the light in Substance Painter is a little bit different setup, but as you can see, we still do have the metallic highlights. As we move this guy along, you'll see that those bottom bits do actually still reflect properly. Now I'm eating into office hours time, so I apologise for that, but I do want to just kind of cover this quickly. First things first, cloth physics. Now, if you want to get cloth physics in the scene, the quickest way to do that is just add a cloth component. Very simple. And also just make sure you click recalculate bounds. And if we copy those bounds into our cloth, that will matter. Okay, so when you're working with cloth, you need to edit the tethers. And why are they not behaving? Okay, so this is something you'll need to come back on. I'm afraid that I'm running a little bit out of time to covering this into too much detail. First things first, you need to click Edit Constraints. That'll give you a little painting window that lets you paint how far something can move. So generally speaking, you don't want things moving very far because cloth in real life doesn't actually stretch that much. It only sort of flops around a bit. So keep the stretching fairly low and just set the maximum distance it can move to something reasonable for the area that it's attached to. That's the first thing to do. The second thing is you need to set up the colliders. Now to do that, you need to use the same bone structure that we did for attachments. You need to grab things like in this case, we'll grab the upper leg and the left leg. So you can see here we've got our bones here and here and here and here. These are the ones that are most likely to actually influence our t-shirt here. And to do that, all we have to do is we have to just go into the sphere colliders. I find that the sphere pairs do work better. You can thank Trilo for helping us debug those. So I'll just add 2 pairs of spheres, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the upper leg first. Sorry, we need to add a collider to it as well. So we'll just grab a collider onto all of these. We'll just add a simple sphere collider. This is going to be default. The radius is way too big. We just want to grab, roughly speaking, that's something that corresponds with the object. Now we can play with the offsets and things, which is what we're going to have to do just to get this to line up. Each creator may have their own sort of magic offset settings here. We will try and provide some defaults on our avatar in the future, but for now, you do want to try and avoid it poking out of the skin if you can, because it will cause your cloth to look a bit unusual. So here we go. This is probably about good. We'll grab those, and then the lower legs, we'll just shrink these. And the reason we shrink them is just to make sure that when we define this, it'll define as a sort of a cone. If someone feels like being a helper, could you just announce on Skype that I will be doing office hours for me in just a moment. Okay, so we've got these guys lined up. And finally, we'll just grab the sphere pair. So we'll just grab the upper leg. The upper leg is going to go from there, and the upper leg is going to go to there. And when we put them both together, we should be able to see, it'll change the view a little bit. So we'll just grab the next one, which is going to be the right upper leg. And the right leg. And that is the basics of doing a, yeah, you can see it, it's just, unfortunately it's in blue, so you can't really see it too well, but it's built now, you can sort of see a conical structure if we pull this clothing settings off, just temporarily. So just copy that component and remove it. We've got those selected. We've lost that, but basically what it's done is it's built a small conical structure, and that's the area that will be influenced by cloth as the avatar moves around. Now this guy is pretty much ready to go. I think we just need to tick some checkboxes. This one's going to be chest, upper chest, that'll be it. We'll say pelvis as well, because it does cover the pelvis. We'll set this one to loose fitting, or close fitting, because that will determine the tucking and sorting layers, and we can actually just upload this one straight away after filling out a virtual good. I will do that while we're at office hours, and I'll hopefully be able to wear it by the time we're done. Hopefully this is all going to behave, and we'll get a little bit of, I'll see if I can sort out the cloth physics in a second as well. Okay, so this guy is now good to go. The thing we might want to do is attach patterns. Now, patterns basically let us have multiple variations of a mesh without having to re-download the mesh constantly, and it also lets you group them together in the shop. So when you look in the shop, you can see that some items have got color variations and things. To do that, we just need to make a second set of textures. So here, I'm just going to make a super quick variation of this one. I will grab our color. And this one's going to go to bright pink. It's going to be very obviously different. And we'll just export this one into a slightly different directory. Pattern 1. Give it a second to run. Now, building a pattern. When you upload a clothing item, such as this one, onto the process, and to do that, you just need to fill out the virtual good form. Do the virtual good form, you fill it out here. Down the bottom, once you've uploaded it, you'll actually get it'll say under status, the item ID. You can also pull that off the curator website. If you go here, you can see the ID number there. You just need to remember this when doing a pattern, because what you do for a pattern is you just go create a new game object, add a virtual good. This just fills out the preview items and things for your pattern. And then finally, you just need to add a clothing pattern, clothing extra pattern. You've got a bunch of slots here. So in this case, we've got our pattern 1. So we just swap in the diffuse texture, we'll swap in the metallic, we'll swap in the normal. And when we put those ones in there, that will basically just fill out the information. Now we just need to put the parent item ID for the original item, so it'd be that one there. And then this one just gets uploaded as a clothing item. And that will upload, and when it's in the store, you'll now have the extra variation available on top of it. Other than that, that is the very basics of doing clothing. I will hope to sort of cover off some of the things I missed out on today, because unfortunately we didn't sort of get quite enough time to finish everything up, but there is more to be discussed here, particularly on cloth physics. I'd like to come back to and give you a bit more detailed information on exactly how that works, and also cover off tucking and layering and a few other bits and pieces. Nonetheless, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully there's been at least some useful information here. I know that the results weren't particularly spectacular, but it hopefully can guide you in your efforts, that you can do a little bit of a better job on building these clothing items in space. Hopefully we can show you some of the things like automated rigging and weighting and things that can save a bit of time for you. Alright, I'm going to head to my office hours. If you are interested in talking more about clothing, I actually have some things to announce about clothing today, so please do hop in world. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. We're going to be discussing vehicles and physics. Alright, thank you guys. Bye.